Most of Europe's most famous cities are also pretty expensive these days, so a lot of travelers assume a Europe trip is out of reach on a tighter budget. But in this video, I'm going to show you 7 fantastic European cities where you can still travel for around $100 a day per person, including your hotel, and in some cases much less than that. I'll show you real hotel and hostel prices, along with cheap food, free attractions, and other ways to stretch your budget without ruining your trip. One of these cities even has huge sandy beaches right within the city limits, which probably isn't what most people imagine when they think of budget Europe travel. I'm Roger from priceoftravel.com. Let's get started with Istanbul. Our first stop is Istanbul, which sits right on the edge of Europe, so it feels more exotic than most other cities on this list. As I mentioned in a recent video about Europe's best value countries, Turkey feels unusually cheap these days because of the local economy and tourists get the benefit. This is obviously one of the world's great cities with incredible sights, so the fact that it's also affordable is a huge bonus. Here's a hotel with an amazing location and excellent reviews for only $49 per night for 2 people in late June, or solo travelers can stay at this nearby hostel for only $14 per night. The street food here is legendary and inexpensive, and even a sit-down dinner can often be under $10. You can tour the massive Grand Bazaar for free and maybe test your haggling skills while you're there. The famous Blue Mosque is still free to enter, while the Hagia Sophia right next door now costs about $28. Alcohol isn't especially cheap in Turkey, but almost everything else is, which makes Istanbul one of the best budget destinations anywhere in Europe. Next up is Budapest, Hungary, and this city comes up in a lot of my Europe videos because it has that rare combination of high quality and surprisingly low prices, although it's not quite as cheap as it was 5 or 10 years ago. Budapest is gorgeous and loaded with grand architecture fitting of an important historical capital city like this, but because it spent decades on the other side of the Iron Curtain, it's still much cheaper than similar cities farther west. Here's a well-located hotel where you can get a 1-bedroom apartment with excellent reviews for only $67 per night for 2 people, again in late June, or solo travelers can stay at one of the better central hostels for only $17 per night. One of the best things to do here is simply walk around and admire the architecture, but the so-called free walking tours are also a great deal since you can tip whatever you think it was worth at the end, and even $5 per person is perfectly acceptable for backpackers. Cheap food is easy to find here if you avoid the tourist restaurants, and alcohol prices also tend to be very reasonable, especially compared to Western Europe. Our next city is Prague, and this one might surprise some people because it used to be famously cheap, but now it's so popular that it doesn't feel nearly as affordable as it once did. That's true, but if your budget is limited, this is still a fantastic choice because unlike cities such as London or Paris, there are still plenty of great and affordable options here. The architecture in Prague is extraordinary and arguably even more impressive than Budapest, mostly because so much of it survived the World War II bombings that leveled many other cities in this part of Europe. So once again, a free walking tour is one of the best and cheapest ways to experience the city. Even Prague Castle only costs about $20 to visit, as you might know if you saw my recent video ranking Europe's top attractions by value. Here's a highly rated hotel just a couple blocks from Old Town Square for only $90 per night for 2 people, and the famous Czech Inn Hostel still charges only $22 for a dorm bed along with all the extra hostel amenities and activities. This is another city where following locals into restaurants and pubs instead of other tourists is one of the keys to eating and drinking well without spending too much. Next up is Krakow, Poland, and if you've researched budget travel in Europe before, you were probably expecting this one to appear on this list. And for good reason, because Krakow is still one of Europe's best combinations of quality and affordability. This was the historic capital of Poland, so it has an impressive castle inside the central city walls along with plenty of other gorgeous buildings and interesting things to see. Once again, a free walking tour is almost like a cheat code in a compact and walkable city like this, so you can skip the expensive hop-on, hop-off bus tours entirely. Here's a good hotel right in the gorgeous Old Town area for only $75 per night for 2 people, and this hostel charges only $16 a night for a bed in a cool location just outside the city walls. Food and drinks are very affordable here, and travelers with bigger appetites will especially appreciate the hearty local cuisine and generous portions. Even many of the tourist-oriented restaurants are still reasonably priced, so you won't have to wander far from the center looking for deals. By the way, if you're enjoying this, please hit the like button because I've got a lot more videos like this and it helps other people find them. Next up, and this is the beach city I mentioned near the beginning, is Valencia, Spain, which I also featured in a recent video about underrated European cities that are surprisingly affordable. Barcelona is now famous for being insanely crowded, especially in summer, and also increasingly expensive. Valencia, which sits farther down Spain's Mediterranean coast, is the perfect alternative because it also has a beautiful historic center, impressive architecture, unique modern sites, and huge sandy beaches right within the city limits. It probably won't surprise you to hear that hotels directly near the beaches can get expensive in summer, so budget travelers will usually want to stay a bit farther inland, but that's not a big problem because public transportation here is cheap and easy to use. Here's a hotel near the main train station for only $87 per night in late June, and this highly rated hostel charges only $25 a night for a dorm bed in a very central location. More international tourists are discovering that Valencia is cheaper and more pleasant than Barcelona, so you definitely won't have the city all to yourself, but at least you won't feel like you're trapped inside a giant Where's Waldo picture everywhere you go. This is also the birthplace of paella, and it's not hard to find reasonably priced portions of it along with many other classic Spanish dishes. Once you find a hotel that fits your budget, almost everything else in Valencia is pretty affordable as well. Next up is Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and this is definitely the least famous city on this list, but hear me out because Sarajevo is quietly one of the hidden gems of budget travel in Europe. The city is beautifully set along a river in a mountain valley. It's easy to explore, surprisingly affordable, and it feels very different from most other European cities because it has a large historic mosque district right in the center. Sarajevo is known for religious tolerance, and it's especially popular with Muslim travelers from the Middle East, but non-Muslims still make up roughly half the population, so the whole city has a fascinating cultural mix that feels unusually exotic for Europe. I still remember paying about $1 for pints of beer on my first visit, just a block away from the mosque area, so don't imagine this feeling anything like Saudi Arabia or another conservative Middle Eastern country. Here's a well-rated hotel just across the river from the main square for only $74 per night for 2 people, and a hostel dorm bed nearby costs only about $15 per night. Getting to Sarajevo isn't quite as easy as reaching some of the other cities on this list, but for travelers who make the effort, it's rewarding, memorable, and very affordable. Last up, and this one might surprise some people with a budget of only about $100 per day, is Athens, Greece. Athens is another city that used to appear on almost every cheap Europe list years ago, and while prices have definitely gone up over time, it's still surprisingly possible to visit Athens on a lower budget and have a fantastic trip. The Acropolis Complex and the National Archaeological Museum both made my top 10 in my recent video about ranking Europe's best attractions by value, which I'll link below, and you should still be able to fit at least one of those into a careful budget here. The famous sites in Athens easily rival those in Rome or Istanbul, and once again, the free walking tours are one of the best budget tricks because they help you experience many of the city's highlights for little more than a small tip at the end. Here's a very central hotel with excellent reviews for only $80 per night in late June, and this nearby hostel charges only $19 for a dorm bed. And if you already enjoy Greek food at home, I've got good news for you because there's an endless supply of it here, and it's often much cheaper than what you'd pay back home. Great gyros, souvlaki, and other Greek dishes are available all over the city at very reasonable prices. It does take a little effort to keep an Athens trip within a tighter budget these days, but it absolutely can be done, and it's one of those places you'll never forget once you finally experience it in person. So there you have it, 7 European cities where a budget of around $100 per day per person can still go a surprisingly long way, especially if you travel a bit strategically and avoid the biggest tourist traps. I'll link my full article version of this list below on priceoftravel.com in case you want hotel links and more details on each city, and I'll also link my recent video about underrated European cities because Valencia and a couple of the others on this list came from that one as well. And if you're trying to decide which famous European sites are actually worth paying for once you get there, be sure to check out my recent video ranking Europe's top attractions by value, including the Acropolis, Prague Castle, the Vatican Museums, and many others. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy realistic European travel advice and budget-friendly destinations like these, please hit the like button and consider subscribing because I've got more European videos coming up very soon.